Hello lads, my name is Peebus, also known as Peeb, and today after popular demand, I think it was asked like twice, I've decided to explain and show how I personally do animations for the various animation memes I do. Firstly, a disclaimer, I am not an animator. I actually have minimal practice doing actual animation. Do not take what I do as professional advice. The animation stuff I do, I kind of consider a hobby of sorts, one that I do purely for fun. And it's a great way to advertise our comic Axe 19. I take art in general way too seriously, so it's nice to have a thing where I can go, fuck it, we ball, and not overthink the outcomes too much. So take everything I say and do with a grain of salt. With that out of the way, let's briefly go over the kind of animation you see in my videos. I do what they call keyframing or tweening. I always prefer saying keyframing though, because I used to hover around the animation meme community in 2016. Reminder, I'm old. And tweening as a term was used in a very derogatory fashion back then. A lot of the guys spending hours doing frame by frame animation hated the fact that tweeners would come out and reproduce trends in half the time with half the effort. Don't get me wrong, I kinda get it, but I think also at this point animation memes have become more about having fun and following the endless exhausting onslaught of trends to appease the algorithm, and less about how much effort you put into each video. You could say it's slopification, but I like how there's less pressure to slave away for countless hours on one video, and there's more pressure instead to constantly output content. If you're someone who's pursuing animation and loves doing frame by frame stuff, good for you, keep at it. Please get into the industry and convince Hollywood schmucks to bring back 2D animation, please, just for little old me. I'm an illustrator and graphic novelist. My medium is comics. Animation stuff is just a little side hobby, and it's a great way to show glimpses of our characters and comic to a wider audience. So, if you want to get into doing animation, you only need two things: an art program, or if you draw traditionally, you can also animate. It's just going to be a different kind of way of going about it than what I would do. So if you draw traditionally, you will just need a photo editing program. And also, you will need a video editing program where you have the ability to keyframe images and do chroma key. If you don't know what keyframing is, basically you're telling the image to move from point A to point B in X amount of time. You can also scale up and down, rotate, squish and stretch, change opacity, etc. with the use of keyframes. It depends on what program you use and what it offers, and if you don't know what chroma key is, that's just the ability to make a green screen transparent. You could technically get away with doing your videos without it, but it makes later edits really complex, and I'll explain why it's needed for the kind of animation I do a little bit later. I use a relatively basic program, Wondershare Filmora, which I actually don't recommend. I use it out of habit at this point, but it's uber crappy and it's not at all built for animation. It's just a shitty video editing program, but it's what I have and it's what I've used for like 2 or 3 years now. I did also used to use Premiere, and I have dabbled a little bit in After Effects, but not too much. But I think think I could get my head around it. I'm just not fucking paying Adobe a single cent. But Filmora, I like the library of effects it has, and I can do some fun stuff with them, and we will get into that a little bit later. I know I'm probably like an old head for a lot of people because most youngins don't use a laptop and tablet or PC and tablet. They just have an iPad, and I see a lot of people using a light motion. I imagine you can probably achieve the same thing using a light motion, if not more. It seems like it has a lot of good variety for keyframing, like being able to set certain loops and stuff, which makes it actually more accessible and easier than what I do. Honestly, I haven't done a tutorial because I am behind the curve. I'm still in 2016, bro. I've got a flipper clip. I'm bouncing my head, sliding the frames back and forth. So, if you have an art program or photo editing program or app for the Gen Alphas out there, and B, a video editing program or app that has the ability to keyframe and chroma key, you can animate like me. Yippee! First, we need to decide what we're animating, and for this segment you'll see me sketching out a storyboard right now. You might have found a trend you like that you want to take a crack at, or maybe you're just wanting to do a small test animation. Whatever it is, if we're going to be good little animators together, let's start with the foundation. If you want a good direction for where your animation is going, I recommend doing a basic or complex storyboard. It's up to you. Even if you're just copying trends, I recommend storyboarding, as it's a good way to get an idea out there and maybe give your animation a unique flair or spin that makes it stand out from the rest. Sometimes I will just quickly jot down the general expression, pose, and any notes for future me to consider, and it will literally be a 5-second thumbnail sketch, but as long as I get the idea down and I can understand it, it's all good. By the way, this is also not professional advice. If you want to be a storyboard artist, don't draw like this if you want to get into storyboarding. The way I work is for me to understand and me alone, so I don't worry too hard about the quality of my drawings at this stage, whereas typically storyboard artists are working for everyone on a project to have a good foundation and understanding of pacing and layouts. If you're like me though, just have a little fun messing around. Just do whatever feels right. Draw stickmen for your storyboards if it makes it easier. Like, this is just about an idea, getting the idea down on paper before you just do a final product. It is probably the most important phase if you're wanting to do something a bit more complex. So like the one I'm working on here is kind of story based, so I'm putting just like a tiny bit more consideration into the storyboard, whereas something like the rainbow eye one I did, that one I think I did like a very short drawing of each character in the kind of pose expression I wanted them to do, and I didn't do much more than that. Okay, so I'm working on this trend. I've seen this audio a little bit around recently. I think I am quote unquote late to trend. I know that itself is like I appease the algorithm type phrase, but I think I am late to it. It's just only showed up on my shorts recently. I don't go on shorts too often though, because I am an employed adult. The first thing we're gonna do actually is we're gonna set up our canvas, and what you want to do is go to new, and you want to set your canvas to whatever ratio you are working at. I know some people like working in a square format, so I think that would be 1080 by 1080. something like that. I always work, unless I'm doing a horizontal aspect ratio, I'm working for shorts, so I'm always going to be doing the 1080 by 1920 aspect ratio. And then what I do is I will get a random color, usually a neutral-ish tone, or if I'm going for a specific vibe, like the current one I'm working on, I've used like a grayish blue because it's going to be a depressing one, so we're using a depressing color. We're going to fill that in with our fill tool, and then what I will do is I will expand the canvas, and there's no specific amount really you need to expand it by, just make sure it's enough, because I'll explain it later. I don't want to get too complicated about it now, but you do want extra. Think of this like a bleed or extra margin, but overall this will be your workspace. This is what will be showing up on camera, you know, and this is extra drawing space, which you will need, trust. So and also just talk about different aspect ratios. Some people like working in the square format because you technically, in a weird way, you get more horizontal space this way. You get more free real estate for your character to move from like one end to the other. So if I draw like this character like this, okay, they're gonna have like a lot of real estate to walk from one end to the other. Whereas on this one, even though it's technically the same, it feels a lot shorter because this aspect ratio really likes this way. So that's why a lot of people use the square one. I personally really like that full effect you get when you're watching like a full aspect ratio video on your phone. So I very rarely use the square one, and if I do, I often break the confines of the square, you know. You'll often see me with like, ooh, oh, what have I done? Wait, what have I done? There we go. You'll often see like, you know, if I'm doing that, then I'm gonna have like a black border on top and on bottom kind of thing. If you know what I mean. If you know what I mean. So I'll do that kind of thing, and then on top of that I'll have like the character kind of like there, you know, and they'll be like bouncing out of the, they'll be like yippee, you know, outside of the confines of the square, the evil square. It's up to you. It's a personal preference on anything. It can also be an impactful decision depending on what you want to achieve. Okay, so let's start with actually getting into the animated part of this. Make sure you have finished your storyboard, and for this tutorial I'm not going to explain every animation, but rather we are just going to work on one scene or shot together. I think when someone asks about how I do animation, they're usually referring to when I do a very smooth or clean effect. So we'll work on something like that together. I think that'll be a good idea. Alright, let's actually get into it now. This was all the intro. Fuck. Okay, so I am back. I have sketched out our first shot, so this probably looks like a big old mess, and that's okay. And that's because for sketching things out, you kind of want to segregate everything into like layers. This background layer will actually be on top of everything. Oops. Because it's actually a foreground piece. So just think about like what's hiding behind what. So I don't know if you can hear my cats in my background. You probably can't, but they're going off right now. So this is like the background, right? And then we have a door frame, and then we have our character right here. So let's just go over from the head. This will be segregated further. What's that? Are you a nothing burger? Okay, we have a nothing burger layer here. Okay, so we have the head here, and then we have the hair behind as well that I fully sketched out. And this is because you need to draw as much as you can for this kind of animation, as much body as you can as well. I haven't segregated these, but this will be so the arms will be separated as well. So I made sure to draw the body behind it. Same with this, I drew the arm behind it because I'll go behind the body, and with the legs I kept that separated as well, and I kind of drew a little bit of the leg behind, so you know where the leg is. So I think we'll start with the head and go from there, and I'll try to explain things as I go and speed up where I'm being quiet. Firstly, I always apply a Gaussian blur to all of my sketches, so I get a clear view of what I'm drawing. Right, the eyes themselves, you want to separate your eyes into the eyelids themselves, and this can be just one layer, like this. Okay, so that's one layer, and then underneath we're gonna do the pupil, and this is so it can be moved individually, so as you can see, you can just move that around. Now, depending on what you're doing, you can put both eyelids on the same layer. It depends on the angle which your character is drawn. I tend to do both on the same layer just because it makes things easier when it comes to animating later. This will happen a lot, by the way. If you want to be a good little artist, then name all your layers. Because I don't have time for that. It actually does. Okay. So you can kind of test out if your eyes are looking really awkward if you're moving them on one layer, separate them, easy as that. But if it looks natural, kind of as a 360 degree, then keep it on the same layer, no harm in that. I would say when you are drawing eyes at a very degreed, like 3/4 angle, like that kind of angle, right? That would be when you need them to be separated, because this eye will appear to be moving a lot more than this eye. This is just something that I've like observed. So we got the eyes, the pupil separated. That's all we will need to separate for now. The eyebrows on top as well. Eyebrows don't really need to separate either, unless you are doing like a quirked eyebrow, you know, like a you know, like a that, because then you can move one of the eyebrows up and the other one down to create more of an emphasis. That's my chunky eyebrows. Look at this top, by the way. They look cool. He's a tragic container. Just going to... Best way to see how I animate is But I animate like the illustration is coming to life, so I never leave my illustrator brain. I'm always thinking like this is an illustration, not an animation. And I think that's what makes people quite appeal to how I do things and question how I do things. If you just treat what you're animating like a moving illustration rather than an animation, things are a lot more fun. Now that we've done that, we are going to put all of these in one folder and we're just going to call it eyes. Next, we're going to work on the face, and we are going to separate the face into an upper and lower jaw, and the upper jaw is going to include a majority of the head. So let's just start with the ear for now. I'm actually going to zoom out a bit. Now I'm debating, I don't know whether I want this video to be full color. I might do it, why not? We'll work on a bigger project for this one. Because it's a bit angsty and dramatic, sure. I think people like it more when I do full color stuff. Because I use pretty colors apparently. Not necessarily on purpose, I just hate dull colors. I'm the opposite of an emo. I'm a little sparkle guy. Now you've noticed I've ignored the hair thingies here because they're going to be on a separate layer as well. Just go around like that a little bit. And then we've got the forehead. We're going to stop there. And we're also going to include the nose on this layer. I don't like how I drew the nose in this sketch. Awesome. So we've got the upper head here. Still just gonna finagle with bits and bobs here and there. Now we're going to start drawing the lower jaw, and we're going to continue the line from the upper jaw and just draw a little bit above it as well. And just kind of overlap the line there as well with that one. And you will see we can kind of move that up and down. And that's because when you speak, your jaw moves. Isn't that crazy? So we're going to fabricate that in a way for an open mouth. And we're probably only going to move it ever so slightly because too much and it'll look really weird. But yeah, so we've got upper jaw, lower jaw, and now we're also going to do a mouth, and that is also going to be separate. That's because make sure you have like a plan for like how what you want to move in your animated new animation. I know I want his mouth to move like ever so slightly, like opening like he's shocked. So what we're gonna do, let me just show you. This is what, like, I made my own VTuber model, and it was kind of the tip that was given to me when I did that as well, is you can kind of test certain things like head rotation and things like that by using like free transform on Clip Studio. So if you go into free transform and then you can kind of squitch and stretch, it's gonna look blurry because it's that, but you can kind of test how that's going to look when you do go to animate it, so whether that looks natural or not. Yeah, and that looks pretty good to me. So yep, you've got your lower jaw here, and the lower jaw has the mouth on top, and then you have the head at the top, a part half of the head on top of that. And then on top of that you have the eyes, and the eyes are separated between eyebrows, eyelids, and pupils. What we need to do now is do his two hair thingies. So these need to be separated into both sides. Now hair is it's not complicated, but how you separate each kind of layer of hair will depend on a lot of different things. What I might do is show an example of like a different hairstyle and how you can do like separate that. Claude's hair is a bit more like intuitive for what you need to keep separated, because he has like two twirly hairbang things from the top of his head, so you obviously just separate those. But with like different hairstyles comes different separation, and how many like separate things you need to make, how many you want to make as well. The more you do, the more dynamic and layered the hair will look. So if you want a dynamic flowy hair, then you need to do a lot of separation. If you want to do something a bit simpler like this, then you know, you just separate the two bangs like that. And then yeah, keep his head partly tied up. So you don't have to do like a separation for the hair itself, that's why I include it in just the head. And that'll do. We're gonna call these as 8. I don't remember his names. This is from my last video. Yeah, okay, we'll do Racing because he's a good example of like a different hair. So his hair is separated into 3 bangs. Again, pretty intuitive, but you know, you could separate into just one bang, like one thing, like front hair, but if you do 3, then you can move all 3 of these individually. Versus if you just did it all in just one clump, it looks more stiff. Whereas if you do all 3 different ones, then you can have more interesting movement. Like if you consider the weight and things of like hair, you have like a denser clump on one side and a lighter clump on this side. So maybe as he moves, this side is like more in the breeze kind of thing, whereas this one stays a bit more like flat down and doesn't move as much, you know? And the middle one doesn't move too much, or else he looks a bit odd, you know? And then something like Rosa here, she actually has no hair movement because her hair is like styled, so it's probably like gelled up or whatever, so it probably doesn't move much. So it just depends, like it depends on context. You don't have to give hair movement if it doesn't need to. Don't force it to move just because you want to animate it. Think a little bit about the realism of it all. So yeah, we are done with the head now. We'll work on the back hair, and I'm probably just gonna speed through this one because it's not gonna be too bad. It's just gonna be a lot of wibbly wobbly lines. So what I'm doing here, just to briefly talk about, is because I know a lot of this hair is going to be behind his head, I'm actually going to be darkening it quite a lot. So we're gonna add some shadows, and this also will just save you a ton of time. So we are now finished with the hair. Yippee! Obviously, like, not all of it is gonna be, like, perfect. Because most of this will be hidden anyway. We're probably only gonna see, like, part of the hair show up when, like, we do our egg rotation bit. So... yeah. With back hair like this, I wouldn't recommend always just doing it in one clump like I have. I'd recommend doing like maybe 2 or 3 clumps kind of thing, so like separating them out. Maybe like so, you know, like that kind of thing. So then like when you move them, we have like a clump like that, you know. But I'm not doing that because it's probably not going to make much of an impact overall. You know, you always have a little bit of a shadow under your neck. Well, not always, but I would say a majority of the time. In daylight, you have a shadow under your neck. So this whole bit here is just going to be black. This is just going to be a black blob. So we don't need to actually draw out the neck here. And the whole body, in fact, can be drawn in one layer. Oh, there we go. There's his torso. I like to keep the shoulders kind of, when I'm doing like an arm behind like this one, I'll keep the shoulder on the torso layer, whereas the other one, the shoulder, will be part of the arm layer. So we'll do this arm first. I'm not very good with my lefts and rights when it comes to being opposite, so I shan't say if this is his left or right arm, because I have no clue. And then behind his torso is the other arm, and what we're gonna do is this. I'm back from dinner. Feeling a bit more alive than earlier. Sorry, I'm drinking water. I'm very sorry if when I speak I'm very mumbly. I tend to mumble speak when I'm like really focusing on something. And I tend to really focus when I'm lining stuff. So that's kind of awkward, but it's fine. So we've done the torso now, and we're gonna do the same as what we did with the face and put it in a separate folder and call it torso. So we can now hide that, and then we can focus on the leg. Similar to the torso, we kind of have this center point kind of thing, where you have like where the limbs are attached to, I should say. So what we're gonna do is draw the hips first and then attach the legs later, and we're going to kind of stop at like a certain point. These are meant to be like loose shorts, so I'm just gonna give him some more slack in his nether regions. So this is like hips, crotch, I don't know what we're calling this. And underneath both of the legs are going to be layered underneath the crotch. I just think that makes the most sense. Honestly, I don't do legs a lot. We might be learning together right now. I felt like we should push ourselves for this one a bit, but I'm now officially talking out of my ass. Yeah, we're done here. So this is your line work. Obviously yours won't look like mine, unless you're copying my art style, which, well, thank you. You didn't have to do that. Before we move on, we're actually going to do the background as well. And he needs a little shadow underneath him, so we're actually going to do that now. I think the shadow is going behind him, so what I'm going to do is like a little amogus bean behind him. See if I like sure that can be a shadow. Cool, so easy way I do backgrounds. This is what I do for our comic as well. And also I've drawn a little bit extra than the door frame. So I've actually drawn the whole door as well. And that is because of what we're gonna do is we're gonna move the background, and this is going to create an illusion of like 3D. It's gonna look cool, I hope. Possibly not, but alright, we are finished with the lining. So, I might cut ahead now to colouring. So, I like to work from like the bottom to the top when it comes to colouring. So in terms of like going from the head, I'll work from the last layer thing and then all the way to the top layer thing. That's just how I prefer to do it. There's no real necessary reason. Maybe like if you want to think about how things come together, it's good to work from the bottom to the top. Okay, with the face, I would say start from the topmost one, and that is because we're gonna do a very specific thing here. So listen up, kids. Hi! Honey! What's up, Papa? What's up? Anyway. So, because this isn't just a contained drawing, it has like a loose bottom, shall we say. We want the eyes on as well, just so we can see. You want to go from just under the eyes, like this, go up to the nose like this, start from this ear, do the same thing, just go under the eyes. You can actually go a little bit lower, and there's a reason why I go a little bit lower. Something like that. Because I always include like the cheek blush on this layer as well. And then we're just gonna fill that in, like so. And this looks weird, it's gonna look weird just as a separate thing. And then I'm gonna add the clawed blush. What I might do for this as well, because his face is at like such a perspective, I don't have a lot of real estate here, so we're actually gonna blur this out at the bottom here. And then you just want to continue as normal from this point on. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Now that we're on the bottom jaw, you just want to go like that, and make sure there's enough extra there, and that is all you'll need to do, is just fill it in, and then you can see from here it looks like that. Sometimes this will happen. I just get rid of any overspill. Yeah, so that's all your bottom jaw is that, and you can test if you've done enough by just kind of pulling it down and up. Awesome. That's looking good. I usually keep the face on but lower the opacity when doing the eyes, and there's a reason for that, because we are going to do this. So the eyes move. Well, for this scene in particular, the eyes aren't actually going to move like that much, at least not up and down, but it's still a good habit to get into, is to do this. And you're just going to create like, oopsie, like a barrier of sorts, so that if you move the pupil around, oopsie, you know, if he's looking down, you won't see the bottom of the pupil. Same with looking different directions, you know? But for this scene in particular, his eyes are going to be staying quite central. I'm probably... wrongly. I'm probably just gonna have his eyes like moving a bit like that, you know? But it's just so you understand the technique. So now if I'm looking to the side, look, that looks so very normal. We're gonna do eye whites. I've actually started doing like a thing where the eye pupils are always bright. That's too dark though. I was gonna say the eye pupils are like usually brighter than the eye whites themselves. I really like that effect. I've noticed other people do it. It works quite nice, but it does require some messing around though. Yeah, because I'd say those two hues are a bit too similar. So gives the impression the eyes are glowing a bit, and I just kind of like that. I just think it's neat. Anyway, so you keep the eye whites on just a completely different layer, and they're just gonna sit there like that. No need to do anything extra for them. He's like a fucked up octopus. So we've done the hair, the face. Jesus Christ. We just got the front hair bits to do. That is the head done. Okay, so we're done with Claude. See, look, it's basically just unfinished illustration. Look at that. You can't tell the layers we're hiding here. No siree. So now we're gonna work on the background. Round 2, let's go. Okay, so it's a new day for me. I don't know if people would have noticed. Actually, I spent like all of yesterday editing what I had recorded. I'm really sorry I get so like sleepy towards the end. I'd been recording for I don't know how many hours, and drawing for many hours, and it's, as I found out, it's quite difficult talking and drawing at the same time. At least for me. I know some other people can do it just fine, but like, you know, drawing is like quiet time for me. Feeling a bit more energized. It's a new day. Okay, so we're in a different kind of view now, and this is so we can see all of the like filey things. Because what we're gonna do now is we are going to export everything. And there might be an easier way to do this. This is the way I know. So to start, we are going to hide all of our background. So you want like the transparent square thing, you know? I think this should be fine. I don't think I'm doxing anything doing this. What you want to do is we're gonna name everything and save everything. So we're just gonna call this background 1. So for saving smaller things like this, we don't want to save the whole image like this, because it's just, I feel like it's wasting space, you know? So if you get your magic wand tool, select everything around it, invert the selection, and then crop it, we'll get just the shadow. How you name things, up to you, really. It just depends how you want to do it. What I like to do is make everything visible again afterwards and then hide the folder. So then we're gonna go through the body now. A tip I was given when doing like naming like VTuber stuff, assets, is instead of doing left and right, you use a symbol that indicates like one direction or the other. So for this, we'll call it Claude leg, and we're going to use this symbol here to indicate it is the like right side leg, his left leg. I think that's how that works. But we know now that it's pointing it's going that direction, if you know what I mean. You can't use certain symbols when saving images, I think. I can't remember which ones you can and can't use. So I always use the square brackets. It just makes it easy. You could use like the pointy, I don't know if you can use that actually. I just use the square brackets. Okay, actually, let's pause for a second. We're gonna get all of the eyes all together on like one layer. And we're not gonna save them all like this, but for the eyes, it's actually easier if you all save it at the same resolution. So I actually started doing that differently. So we'll start with the eye whites and then doing the same thing again, but you'll see why we're doing it this way in a moment. But it's just easier if you do it like this and it's all the same size. Oops. I think that's like meant to be a lower opacity in your video. Just save it as full opacity, and you can edit the opacity in your video editing program later. Because you might want to change how the opacity looks in the actual video anyway, because it might look a bit different kind of thing with your full scene. Anyway, that should be all of your images saved. If you have done everything correctly, I think we'll just lay them out, show you how each individual asset looks, and we can now start animating. Isn't that fun? So let's actually start what we came here to do, and that is animating. So you want to go to whatever program you're using. Obviously I'm using Filmora. We're gonna do a new project. Go away. We're going to open some files. Here are all of our assets all ready for us to bring in. For now, the only thing we need to focus on is the actual character itself, so we'll bring all of those in, but in fact we're not actually going to be working on the body yet anyway, and we're not going to be working in a 9:16 aspect ratio or a 16:9. We're actually gonna go 1:1, and the first thing you want to do is add a green screen, and the second thing you need to do, which I didn't do, we need to grab our audio. That one is actually very sad. So you guys actually can't hear my audio, I realized, but that's okay because there's probably copyright anyway. So we're just animating one segment of this audio. So we only want a little chunk, right? We don't want to have the whole audio here if we're only doing a little bit. So crop down your audio to whatever little chunk you're currently animating. And now we're actually just going to be focusing on the head. So start placing things in from like the bottommost layer, and there's going to be a lot of finagling and resizing going on here, and this is where having like the original illustration is handy, because you have something to reference for, like, so things are scaled correctly. Make sure your layers are all the same as well, and in fact we can just put these down as well. So we start with lower jaw, then we'll put the mouth on, and I'm probably not going to probably edit the mouth until I have the face in. So we just watching it. Actually, that seems okay. This part can be kind of tricky, is getting this correct. In fact, it's too small. Too big, I mean. Now with the eyes, hide that for a moment. We're gonna set these to the correct size. Now that you have these at the correct size, if you put a keyframe down right here, and then you copy that keyframe, make this one visible, paste that keyframe here, then everything will just be automatically correctly resized. I did the layers wrong. That's okay. Do the same with the pupils. And everything is correctly resized, and that just makes resizing the eyes super easy. Okay, that's everything. I like to just make all of my video layers smaller. I like the fact that I can visually see what's what on Filmora. It's kind of nice. I don't get as easily lost. What we're gonna do for this scene is we're gonna have like a sharp movement in the beginning, and then we're gonna make it really slow for the rest of the scene. And this is how you achieve that kind of smooth look. Yeah. So for the mouth, we want the X and Y scale to not be locked so that we can like squish and stretch it, like so. And you want to set your first keyframe on the first frame. Zoom in a bit, and we want to just place it here for now, or like a few frames after. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make like a little bit of like a bounce to his mouth. This is gonna be kind of slight, I think. So I'm gonna do that. Move that up a bit. No. Yeah. So that's gonna be like, okay. No. We really want to like. Yeah, so that's your first bit of animation done. And now we're gonna have him go all wide mouth, like he's kind of just processing what he's seeing. When you're doing this kind of like stretching and squishing, you kind of have to remember where like the top lip is and the bottom lip, because when you open your mouth like this movement, it's the bottom lip that's going to be moving, so you can kind of fake it that the bottom lip is moving by keeping the top point in a very similar location. It doesn't have to be perfect, nothing has to be perfect. You get the idea of how does that look? Looks stupid. I think I want like a slow gasp. So actually what I'm going to do is okay, that looks stupid. Hold on. There's a lot of finagling with this. If you move like your cursor back and forth quite quickly, you can kind of gauge if it looks strange or not. This is still looking a bit strange. I think it's be a bit chunker. It's still not looking right. Still do. I think this is too long of a segment, so I'm just gonna shorten it down a bit more. Yeah, that I think is a bit nice. I'm gonna clip it down just a little bit more. Yeah, so now that you've done the mouth, you can then use the jaw to follow the mouth. There are two ways you can do the jaw. You can either do the same thing as the mouth and squish and stretch it, or you can just move it up and down. I prefer the squishing and stretching. And this is probably only going to be very slight. Once I return dots there. I kind of don't like this. I might have to calculate these. Yeah. We actually don't need to do any kind of animation for the top head. This is kind of like your anchor point, you know, everything else moves around the head. The actual head animation will come later when the whole thing is rendered. So now let's work on the eyes, and I always like to start from the eyelids, and we're gonna do the same thing again. We can actually for this one we might need to do some rotation as well because the head is at an angle. Yeah, so a little bit of rotation just so everything stays aligned. And then we're gonna move up a bit. Unfortunately, I'm now realizing that this video I'm working on doesn't show a lot of like the animation kind of techniques you can do with keyframing. But it has this is like a basic kind of start, I guess. Maybe I can later show things like lip syncing, which I'm like okay at, I'm not the best at. Yeah. So the kind of vibe here is that it's kind of all in like slow motion. We'll just do the same for the eyebrows. We're actually going to move the eyebrows a bit more up. And this kind of shows like, yeah. Yeah, there's kind of more of an emphasis on the shocked face. Moving your eyebrows more than like the eyes kind of pushes expression more. So I'd recommend doing that. Like whatever your eye movement's doing, just push the eyebrows a little bit more on top of that, and that will look good. Now for the pupils. The pupils might be interesting. What I'm going to do is move like a frame. So what we're doing here is just doing like a little bit of a shocked kind of like eye twitching about. Make sure whatever this keyframe is, we're just gonna place it again later here. And then move it again like this. Okay, editing PEEP here. I did not explain this very well. That's okay. We're learning together on how to explain things. But basically what you're doing here is you're just creating this very short between for the keyframes, so you have point A and point B, and they are literally a frame apart, so that the like pupils will like twitch over kind of thing, and you want to make sure that is like as short of a gap as possible, or else the eyes will just like flow together. You can kind of see it here. And you like placement wise, do as many or as little as you like. Obviously if you do it too much it's gonna look really odd and kind of overdone, but doing a few kind of creates this really good visual movement of the eyes twitching about. And you can place them in like any kind of direction as well, so like up and down kind of thing. You can see me doing it here. And yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. Very sorry I didn't explain this. And yeah, it's just like, I think I just didn't explain the placement very well, and like with placement it is kind of random. I'll sometimes do a shorter and a longer gap between each like eye jitter, so it's all up to you. Free to do whatever you want. Anyway. And just for the eye whites, where we can actually copy and paste the eyes. So just copy the keyframes from the eyes and apply them to the eye whites, and they should follow now. That's your head animation done. Yeah, that's all we needed to do. So now we're going to render, and we're gonna call this head 1. Make sure it's saved to the correct folder. Ooh. Make sure your frame rates are correct as well. Make sure they're like 60 frames. This is now exporting. That is exported. Now we have the head, and we're actually just gonna delete all of this. And now that we're working on the rest of the body, we're gonna change our size, the size of our canvas. Yeah, we're gonna just change it to 916. Make sure that's correct. Same thing again, we're gonna start from the bottom, work our way to the top. This is probably gonna take some amount of finagling, because we have a lot of different parts here and I'm not sure how they're all gonna fit on. When you're working on the main bit, if your video editing program allows you to zoom in, you probably will need to for this part. And also in between. Just see how things can look. Okay, so it is. So we've got the head now as well. Hold on, I rendered this with audio. If you render it with audio, make sure you detach the audio and delete it. So this is where chroma key comes into play. Firstly, so you want to turn on chroma key, and then you have your head. There we go. It's now transparent and fully animated. I did think this was going to be an issue. Let's do it anyway. Yeah. See, he's already animated. Okay, so that is the setup done for the main body. I'm gonna be for real, I don't know where we're going from here. I'm just figuring out where we should start. I'm gonna start from the bottom. And we'll see where we go from there. And I think we want this leg to move back. It's not back. Also need to rotate it like ever so slightly. Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of slight movements here. So unfortunately with Filmora, I don't have the ability to set rotation points. It's kind of lame, to be honest, so I kind of have to manually rotate things at certain rotation points just by eyeballing it. It might be easier if you're using a different program. Do I want this leg to... Tell you what, we want this leg to start a little bit rotated this way. That looks kind of stupid, actually. Never mind, my idea was stupid. That also looks stupid though. What if I'm trying to cheat my way into making this look like he's taking a step. Still taking some positioning though. Maybe this leg just needs to stay put. Maybe this leg just moves ever so slightly this way. Yeah, that's so slight, but kind of like it. The hips actually can move if we're mimicking him taking a step. So really, I should have started with the hips. We're trying to do the same with the body now. I actually put down yeah, so because we put the hips up. Cool. So what we've done here is we've kind of mimicked like movement, like a step. So he's going up here and then down for the rest of it. And it also kind of adds like some chest movement, kind of makes it look like he's taking a gasp as well, so it works both ways for us. Next we're going to work on the hair, and I think we want, kind of obviously we want it to blow out this way. have too much to go this way. Anyway, if your program doesn't have a rotation point tool, basically when you rotate things, you kind of want to move the X and Y as well. And you want to go back and forth. Until it looks like it's rotating from a certain point. That's how you manually do a rotation point. We want the arms to kind of look like they're going back in shock from this point as well. We might actually have more movement because arms tend to move a lot. It's like a weird thing. The reason why it looks weird is because my rotation point sucks. We're actually gonna have this arm as well go back. And how we're gonna do that actually is we are just going to shift it back. Rotation a little bit. That didn't look as stupid in my head. That looks stupid. Change of plan. I'm gonna clear all these clear frames. Instead, we start. Again, we have to validate that the fuck key is also moving, because yes. This animation probably would have benefited if I had also separated the wrist and maybe the lower arm. I could have made more dynamic movements that way. That makes sense. So now we go back to doing this and hopefully this looks less chunky, less silly goofy. So you kind of get like almost this impression of 3D by doing this. If we look at just the arm. So if we're looking at just this arm here, it almost looks like the image is 3D. When it's not. We're cheating. I love cheating. So once again, I did not explain shit. That's fine, whatever. Basically, with the head, you just follow the neck, and because he's lifting up, it's lifting up as well. I also decided to add a rotation point and rotate his head to show like that he's being like taken aback kind of thing. I don't explain any of this, I just animate this. Fucking idiot. But basically, this is like the main benefit of doing the head first and then rendering it, is because then you can just move the head about without having to worry about like the eye assets or the mouth or the lower jaw. It's all just like contained in one already. So you can just move the head about however you please without like worrying about like all these other extra assets. It's just contained and it's really good. And it means you can have more movement as well, more dynamic movement. And yeah, it's just, this is how I work. Cool. Anyway, I'm fucking tired, bro. Like we were talking about earlier when drawing, when you consider weight of things, so I think these hair things, they're kind of loose in the wind. This is gonna take some finagling though, because no rotation points on filmora. We're gonna move that back down as well. Yep. I actually don't like how much that's like. I'm moving at very similar rotations. What you can do is like change the timing. That's all right now. And like the other side, this one is like it's still being carried by the breeze. I'm gonna have to zoom in. I think you want to be like here. When I'm doing this, I'm looking at this point where the hair is connected to the head. And not much else. Because the hair needs to connect at the same point on the head. I'm gonna fix this one as well. I know his head is kind of clipping on top, out of bounds. That's okay because it's gonna be hidden anyway. I'd be pissed if it wasn't gonna be hidden, but I don't care. Yeah, so I think we're done here. See, it's not complicated or anything. It's not really a complicated process. Now we're gonna do the same again, and we're going to export this again, and we're gonna call it Claude Body 1. Make sure this is all correct. And now we're gonna quickly work on the background and foreground as well. So once again, you can delete all this. We're now going to include our background, our foreground, and that shadow. We don't actually need the... do we need the green screen? I'll keep it just in case. So this is where drawing extra is really good, because we can fill up this scene to where it's like that. Closer here, moves. It's not using a bit more, right here. It's not here now, move just a second. We do this now. Once again, you're going to your key. Make sure you're not double here. Here. Let's do something with that. So I know what my scale is. We can just background using the foreground as reference. There we go. And in fact, we don't want to see. Oh, actually, I don't know. Just keep it going. And as we say, it's like this. Don't worry, there's not anything going on. As discussed earlier, we're going to create like this illusion of 3D. By moving the background one way and the foreground the other way. Yeah, that kind of works. And Claude is going to be moving up, and then we're gonna have him go down like he's taking the step. Okay. Obviously his shadow needs to move with him. Rotation too. shadow implementation. Now this shadow, I think I want to mess around with the opacity for it. Yeah. Get slightly darker as well. Yep. I feel like I didn't explain any of that very well. Basically, oh no. I mean, you guys understood that, right? You want to do a lot of movement at the beginning part, and then you want to slow it down to make that smooth effect. And you kind of want to just apply that to everything, and everything will kind of come together like this. So let's just go over post-editing now. And then we will conclude this video. So we're now gonna do some post-editing. This is stuff if you have decided you're insane like I am and decided to use Filmora. This one's just for you guys. Thank you for joining the Insane Club. We're just gonna add a little bit of like extra pizzazz, and these are the things I like using. This is the main one. This is called mild. You'll see me use it all the time when I'm video editing and in all my animations, and it just adds like, well, this is like too much right now. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Just a little bit. We're gonna go into the effects tab. You'll see it here. And we're gonna drop the position Z by like a lot. We do not want position Z to be moving that much. In fact, that's still too much. That's probably too much frequency as well. Yeah. What we can also add to make a smoother transition is we're just gonna move from the left to the right. This is where like zooming in kind of makes a big difference. So I'm actually gonna zoom in some more, but I'm gonna make sure Claude is still visible. I also like using this one here. Isn't that so pretty? I'm gonna dial down the intensity a little bit. You can also finagle on the colors a bit. This is quite neutral. It's occlusion, so we want less occlusion, a little bit less intensity. And I'll probably apply that to the whole video so it has like a consistent look when I'm doing the rest of this video. Oh, we do need to add some text, don't we? I think we're gonna use this one. I like this one. I use it a little bit, quite a bit. And this trend was like, you know, I'm slowly forgetting your face, but my one is gonna be I thought I forgot your face, because I'm a bit quirky and different. We don't want it to. What you can turn on, where is it? Yeah, show safe zones, and this will kind of show where things might get cut off. Kind of like a trim line. Because even though you have this full canvas, YouTube will cut off like some of the borders. And you also kind of have to consider where, like, you know, things like the profile picture, kind of subscribe button. I often forget. Basically try and keep things like more central than you would have, kind of thing. I wonder if I can make this like a blue. Yeah, I might do like another tutorial at some point and talk about more things you can do with keyframe animation. But basically this is a mask tool. You can make different shapes. I have some custom ones that I use for other things. Yeah. But for this one we're using parallel lines. We're going to invert the mask. And then what you can do is adjust the width. And that will... you can actually keyframe that as well, so start from 0 and go all the way up. And I like to add like just a little bit of back, like a bounce back kind of thing. What I might do as well for this, just as a finishing touch, is apply a different mask and do like a vignette type thing. Why all the way up there? Strange. So just keeping this the same, but we're gonna do a circle. We're gonna invert that one. We're gonna scale it all the way up. We're gonna blur out. Maybe lower the opacity slightly. Added. One more thing I actually wanted to add. Oh my god. Hold on, I just realized something. I can just do that to multiply. Cool. And yeah, post editing is kind of important when you're doing this kind of animation because you can hide a lot of your crimes through some fancy filters and things like that. So I think that is all I have to show everybody today. Yeah, let me know if you guys want more like elaborate kind of tutorials. This has become more of a watch me make an animation while I vaguely explain rather than an actual proper tutorial, and that is because when it comes to doing like these animations, I very much so make it up as I go along. You could kind of see that I have like a vague plan of what I want to do and what I want to achieve with each shot. But when it comes to actually animating it, sometimes it doesn't work how I want, so I have to like adapt. And that's fine. I like working like that. I like problem solving my own problems. But that might not be for everyone. That might not be the style you want. I think in conclusion, learn how to properly animate if you really want to get into it. Do as I say, not as I do type shit. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. Be sure to leave a lovely comment. Be sure to have a nice day. Thank you all for watching if you made it this far. I kind of realized that a majority of the video is going to be me drawing. You can tell where my passions really lie. But yeah, thank you everyone. Yeah, please let me know if you want me to do more, because I can talk about like lip syncing and things like that. And I can talk about things like animating to like the beats of songs. I have kind of recently got my head around. and more complicated stuff as well. My cat sneezed in the background. But yeah, thank you everyone. Have a nice day. I'll show the finished animation as well. Yippee!